7 True Reddit Horror Stories. Story 1. The Basement Tenant. I never believed in the paranormal until I moved into that old Victorian house on Maple Street. The rent was too good to be true for a 3-bedroom place in the city, and I should have known something was wrong. The landlord, Mr. Chen, seemed nervous when he showed me around. He rushed through the tour, barely letting me peek into rooms. When I asked about the basement, he said it was just storage and I wouldn't need to go down there. The lease even had a weird clause about the basement being off limits. I thought it was strange, but I needed a place fast, so I signed. The first week was normal. I unpacked, set up my furniture, and started settling in. Then the sounds began. Every night around 3 a.m. I would hear footsteps. Not above me, but below me. Heavy, deliberate footsteps pacing back and forth across the basement floor. I convinced myself it was pipes or the house settling. Old houses make noise, right? But the footsteps had a rhythm. They would walk from one end of the basement to the other, pause for exactly 10 seconds, then walk back. This happened for hours every single night. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a flashlight and went to the basement door. It was locked, but not with a regular lock. There were 3 deadbolts on the outside of the door, like someone wanted to keep something in. My hands shook as I turned each one. The basement stairs creaked under my weight. The air grew colder with each step, and there was a smell. Not quite rotting, but old and musty, like ancient fabric. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, and I could see the basement was completely empty, except for a single wooden chair in the center of the concrete floor. The chair was facing away from me toward the far wall, and someone was sitting in it. I froze. The figure didn't move. I called out, "Hello?" but got no response. I took another step down, and that's when I saw the footprints. Dusty footprints, going back and forth, wearing a path in the concrete dust. But they didn't lead to the chair. They just paced in that same line over and over. I shone my light on the figure in the chair. It was wearing old, tattered clothes. The fabric looked like it was from the 1950s. I moved closer, my heart hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. When I got close enough, I realized it wasn't a person. It was a mannequin, dressed in vintage clothes with a photo taped to its face. The photo showed a man in the same clothes, standing in this very basement. He was smiling, but his eyes looked terrified. Written on the back of the photo in shaky handwriting, "I'm still here. I'm always here." That's when I heard the breathing behind me. Heavy, wet breathing right next to my ear. I spun around, but nothing was there. The breathing continued, moving around me in a circle. Then the footsteps started again, right there with me in the basement, pacing their usual path. But I couldn't see anyone. I ran. I bolted up those stairs faster than I've ever moved in my life. I slammed the door and locked all 3 deadbolts. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the keys. The next morning I called Mr. Chen and demanded answers. He was silent for a long time. Then he told me the truth. The previous tenant, a man named Robert Mills, had died in the basement in 1952. But not just died. He had been trapped down there for 3 days during a winter storm when the door jammed. By the time anyone found him, he had frozen to death, pacing back and forth to stay warm. Every tenant since then had reported the same thing. The footsteps at 3 a.m., the feeling of being watched. And everyone who went into the basement saw the chair and felt that presence. Mr. Chen had stopped renting the place for 20 years, but financial troubles forced him to list it again. I broke my lease that day. As I was moving out, I heard the footsteps one last time, but this time they came up the basement stairs. They stopped right outside the basement door. I heard the doorknob rattle, testing each of the 3 deadbolts from the inside. I left everything I couldn't carry and never went back. Sometimes I still wake up at 3 a.m., and for just a moment, I hear those footsteps. Pacing. Waiting. Forever trapped in his final moments, walking back and forth, trying desperately to stay warm in the cold that never ends. Story 2. The night shift at the gas station. I took a job at a 24-hour gas station on Highway 77 because the night shift paid double. It was in the middle of nowhere, 40 miles from the nearest town. My shift was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and I would often go hours without seeing a single customer. The previous night clerk, a guy named Danny, quit without notice. My manager couldn't tell me why, just that Danny had left his keys on the counter and never came back. That should have been my first warning. My first night was quiet. I stocked shelves, cleaned, and watched old movies on my phone. Around 2 a.m., a car pulled up to pump 3, but nobody got out. The car just sat there, engine running, headlights pointed at the store. I watched it for 20 minutes. Finally, it drove away without pumping gas. The second night, the same car appeared at 2 a.m., same pump, same behavior. It sat there for exactly 20 minutes, then left. I tried to see the driver through the security camera, but the video was always fuzzy when I played it back. On the third night, I decided to go outside when the car appeared. At 2 a.m. sharp, it pulled up to pump 3. I walked out, the night air cold on my skin. As I got closer, I could see someone in the driver's seat. They weren't moving. I knocked on the window. "Sir, do you need help?" The person slowly turned their head toward me. Even though it was dark, I could see their face. Or rather, where their face should have been. It was blurred, like someone had smudged a photograph. No distinct features, just a flesh-colored blur where a face belonged. I stumbled backward. The car door opened. The figure stepped out, and I saw it was tall, impossibly tall, having to unfold itself to get out of the normal-sized car. It stood there, its blurred face pointed at me, not saying a word. I ran back to the store and locked the door. The figure walked to the glass and pressed its hand against it. The hand was wrong, too. Too many fingers, all different lengths. It stood there for the full 20 minutes, then got back in the car and drove away. I called my manager immediately. He sighed like he'd been expecting this call. He told me about Danny and about the clerk before Danny, and the one before that. They'd all quit after 3 days. They'd all seen the car. They'd all seen the figure. But here's what he didn't tell me until later. One clerk hadn't quit. A woman named Sarah had worked there 5 years ago. On her 4th night, security footage showed the car appearing at 2 a.m. It showed Sarah going outside. It showed her walking up to the car. Then the footage cut to static. When it came back 10 minutes later, Sarah was gone. Her car was still in the parking lot. Her purse was still behind the counter. But Sarah was never seen again. My manager begged me to quit. He said anyone who worked more than 3 nights saw the car. But if you worked a 4th night, you saw something else, something worse. And the clerks who worked a 5th night, well, there had only been 2 who were stubborn enough to try. One was Sarah. The other was found in the bathroom the next morning, alive but unresponsive, staring at nothing. He never spoke again. I wanted to quit. I really did. But something kept me there. Not stubbornness or bravery. It was more like a compulsion, a feeling that I needed to see this through. Like the gas station itself wanted me to stay. The 4th night came. At 2 a.m. the car appeared. But this time it wasn't alone. There were 3 cars, all identical, all parked at different pumps. The doors opened simultaneously, and 3 figures stepped out. They all had those blurred faces, those wrong hands with too many fingers. They surrounded the store, pressing their hands against the windows. leaving smears that looked like oil but moved on their own, forming symbols I didn't recognize. I hid behind the counter, calling 911. The operator said she'd send someone, but the police station was 40 miles away. The figures stood there for an hour, not the usual 20 minutes. When they finally left, I saw that the symbols they'd drawn on the windows were still there, pulsing with a faint light. I made it through that night. As the sun came up, the symbols faded away. I told myself I wouldn't come back for the 5th night. I'd quit just like everyone else, but here's the thing. It's 1:45 a.m. on my 5th night. I'm writing this from the gas station right now. I couldn't stay away. Something pulled me back. The car hasn't appeared yet, but I can see headlights in the distance. 3 sets of headlights coming closer. The door just unlocked itself. I didn't touch it. It just clicked open. They're getting out of their cars, but there are more than 3 now. I count 8 figures walking toward the store. No 10, no more. They keep coming, more and more, stepping out of those 3 cars like the vehicles are bigger on the inside. The lights in the store are flickering. My phone is dying even though it was fully charged. I'm going to post this before. Story 3. My daughter's imaginary friend. When my daughter Emma turned 4, she started talking about her new friend. She called her the Gray Lady. I thought it was cute at first, just an imaginary friend like lots of kids have. Emma would have tea parties with her, chat with her before bed, and sometimes I'd catch her laughing at nothing in the corner of her room. What does the Gray Lady look like? I asked one day. Emma drew me a picture. It showed a tall woman in a long gray dress with long gray hair covering her face. No facial features were visible, just that curtain of gray hair. The figure was holding a child's hand. She's very nice, Emma said. She tells me stories about the old days. My husband thought it was harmless. Kids have active imaginations, but something about that drawing bothered me. The detail was too specific for a 4-year-old. The proportions were too accurate. Then strange things started happening. We'd find Emma's toys arranged in perfect circles in the middle of the night. Food would go missing from the kitchen and we'd find it hidden in Emma's closet. Once I found a dead bird carefully placed on Emma's pillow, its wings spread out symmetrically. When I asked Emma about these things, she'd say, "The Gray Lady did it. She's teaching me things." "What kind of things?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "Secret things. Things about what happens when people go to sleep forever." My blood went cold. We'd never talked to Emma about death. She was too young for that conversation. I decided to research our house's history. What I found made me want to move immediately. In 1967, a woman named Margaret Hale had lived in our house with her 6-year-old daughter Caroline. Margaret had long gray hair that she never cut. Neighbors said she was strange, kept to herself, and was often seen talking to herself. One winter night, Margaret killed her daughter while she slept, then hanged herself in Emma's bedroom. The police report said Margaret had been suffering from severe delusions, believing that her daughter had been replaced by an imposter. She left a note saying she was sending Caroline to a better place and would watch over the house forever. I showed my husband the news articles. He thought I was being paranoid, letting Emma's imagination get to me. But I knew what I'd found. The woman in Emma's drawing matched the description of Margaret Hale perfectly. That night, I stayed up watching Emma's room through the baby monitor we still had set up. At 2:30 a.m., Emma sat up in bed. She turned her head toward the corner of the room and smiled. "Hi, Gray Lady," she said in her sweet, sleepy voice. On the monitor screen, I saw it. A shadow in the corner that shouldn't have been there. It was tall, impossibly tall, with what looked like long hair hanging down. As I watched, frozen in terror, the shadow moved. It glided across the room toward Emma's bed. I ran upstairs, bursting into Emma's room. She was sitting up in bed, smiling at the empty corner. "Mommy, you scared her away." She was about to show me how to play the sleeping game. What's the sleeping game, honey? You lay very still and close your eyes, and then the gray lady touches your neck and you get to sleep forever and ever. She says it doesn't hurt. She says Caroline liked it very much. I grabbed Emma and we left the house that night. We stayed in a hotel while my husband, finally believing me, arranged for a priest to bless the house. The priest was there for 3 hours. When he came out, his face was white. "There's something in that house," he said. "Something that doesn't want to leave. It's attached to the room where the child died. It's been waiting for another child." We moved out completely, put the house on the market, and sold it at a loss, not telling the new owners about what we'd experienced. I know we should have warned them, but we were desperate to be free of that place. Emma stopped talking about the gray lady after we moved. She seemed to forget all about her imaginary friend. For a year, everything was normal. We thought we'd escaped. Then last week, Emma came to me with a drawing. My heart sank when I saw it. It was the gray lady again, but this time she was standing in our new house, in our new living room. "Mommy," Emma said, "the gray lady called me last night. She says she missed me. She says she found where we moved to." That night I heard footsteps in the hallway, slow, dragging footsteps like someone with very long legs having to stoop to fit in our normal-sized house. I heard breathing outside Emma's door. Heavy, patient breathing like someone waiting for the right moment. I've started sleeping in Emma's room every night, sitting up in a chair watching the door. My husband thinks I'm losing my mind, but I know the truth. The gray lady isn't an imaginary friend. She isn't even a ghost haunted by location. She's attached to Emma now, and she's very, very patient. She'll wait for the one night I'm too tired, the one night I fall asleep in my chair, and then she'll teach Emma the sleeping game. Last night, Emma whispered to me in the dark, "Mommy, the gray lady says you can't stay awake forever. She says everyone has to sleep eventually. She says she'll wait. I'm writing this at 4 a.m. I haven't slept in 3 days. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. And the worst part? Sometimes I catch Emma staring at me with this strange look in her eyes like she's measuring me, calculating when I'll finally collapse from exhaustion. The gray lady is teaching her patience too." Story 4. The thing in the attic. I bought my first house last year, a small Cape Cod-style place with a finished basement and an attic. The inspector said everything looked good except for the attic access. The pull-down stairs were nailed shut, painted over multiple times, like someone really wanted to make sure they stayed closed. The previous owner, an elderly woman named Mrs. Patterson, had died in a nursing home. Her estate sale had been handled by her nephew, who seemed eager to sell the house quickly. When I asked about the attic, he got uncomfortable and said Mrs. Patterson never used it, that it was just empty space. I should have left it alone. But I'm a practical person. That was storage space going to waste. So 2 weeks after moving in, I got a crowbar and pried open the attic access. The smell hit me first. Not death or rot, but old air, stale and thick like opening a tomb. The wooden stairs unfolded with a shriek of rusty springs. I shone my flashlight up into the darkness. The attic was bigger than I expected, running the full length of the house. And it wasn't empty. There were dozens of crucifixes on the walls, all different sizes, some made of wood, some metal. In the center of the floor was a circle made of salt, still intact after years. Inside the circle was a child's rocking chair facing the far corner. I climbed up, my footsteps echoing in the strange space. The air felt wrong, thick and heavy. As I walked toward the circle, I noticed scratches on the floorboards, deep gouges in the wood, forming words. "Don't let it out" was carved over and over dozens of times, covering nearly every inch of floor outside the salt circle. In the far corner, where the rocking chair faced, the walls were covered in black mold. No, not mold. As I got closer, I realized it was writing. Thousands of words written in what looked like charcoal or maybe dried blood. all saying the same thing. "I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," repeated over and over, covering every inch of the corner walls and ceiling. I heard a creak behind me. The rocking chair was moving, rocking back and forth slowly. But I hadn't touched it. There was no wind in the attic. I left quickly, pulling the stairs up and sealing them again. I spent the night researching the house's history. I found an old newspaper article from 1983. Mrs. Patterson's 8-year-old son, Timothy, had disappeared from the house. No trace was ever found. Mrs. Patterson claimed something had taken him, something she'd brought into the house by accident. She told police that she'd bought an old rocking chair at a garage sale. That night, Timothy said there was someone sitting in the chair in the attic, someone who wanted to play with him. Mrs. Patterson thought he was making it up, but the next morning, Timothy was gone, and the rocking chair was rocking by itself. Mrs. Patterson became obsessed with the attic after that. Neighbors reported she'd go up there for hours talking to someone, pleading with someone to give her son back. She covered the walls in crucifixes and poured salt circles, performing rituals she'd learned from books on the occult. The article said Mrs. Patterson eventually had a breakdown and was institutionalized for 3 years. When she was released, she nailed the attic shut and never spoke about her son again. She lived in that house for another 40 years, never going up there, never mentioning what she believed was still there. I decided to seal the attic permanently, but that night I heard something. Footsteps in the attic, small footsteps like a child running back and forth. Then laughter, high-pitched and wrong, lasting too long, going from childish giggles to something older, darker. The next morning, the attic access was open. The nails I'd hammered in were scattered on the floor below. I shone a light up there and my blood froze. The salt circle was broken. A clear path swept through it, leading to the stairs. The rocking chair had been moved. It was now at the top of the attic stairs, facing down into my house. I tried to leave, packed a bag and headed for the door. But every door in the house was locked from the inside and I couldn't open them. The windows wouldn't budge. My phone had no signal. I was trapped inside with whatever Mrs. Patterson had spent 40 years trying to contain. The footsteps started again, but now they were coming down the attic stairs. Small feet on wooden steps getting closer. I hid in the bathroom, the only door that would still close and lock. Through the gap under the door, I saw small feet walk past. Child-sized feet, but wrong. They bent at impossible angles, the skin gray and papery. A voice called out, thin and reedy, like an old recording of a child. "New friend? I haven't had a new friend since Timothy. We're going to have so much fun together. We're going to play forever and ever and ever." I stayed in that bathroom for 14 hours listening to the thing search the house. It would occasionally come to the bathroom door and scratch at it, whispering promises about games we would play, about how lonely it had been in the attic all these years. When daylight finally came, everything went quiet. The house unlocked. I ran outside and called the police, told them I had a break-in. They found nothing. No evidence of anyone but me in the house. The attic access was sealed shut again, just as I'd left it originally. But I know what I heard. And when the police were in the attic checking for intruders, I saw their faces when they came down. They looked shaken. One of them pulled me aside and whispered, "Whatever happened with this house, I'd suggest you sell it and don't look back. I'm living in a motel now. The house is back on the market. But here's what terrifies me. Last night I heard small footsteps in the motel hallway, and a child's voice singing a lullaby outside my door. When I looked through the peephole, I saw a small handprint on my door, the fingers bent at wrong angles. It followed me. Mrs. Patterson had trapped it for 40 years, and I let it out. And now it thinks I'm its friend. It thinks we're going to play together, forever. Story 5. The Whispering Walls. I'm a contractor, been doing home renovations for 15 years. I've seen a lot of weird stuff in old houses. Victorian architecture with servants' passages, hidden rooms, strange old artifacts sealed in walls. But nothing prepared me for the Hendricks house. The job seemed normal enough. A young couple bought this 1920s farmhouse and wanted to renovate. When I opened up the walls to check the insulation, I found something odd. Between the studs, someone had plastered hundreds of pages of handwritten text directly onto the inside of the walls. The writing was small, cramped, manic. It covered every inch of the wall interior that I'd exposed. I pulled out my phone and started reading. It was a journal, written by someone named Thomas Hendricks, dated 1927. The entries started normal enough. Thomas talking about his farm, his wife Mary, their plans for the future. But as I read further into the wall, the entries got darker. Thomas wrote about hearing whispers in the walls at night, voices telling him things, secrets about his neighbors, truths about the world that normal people aren't supposed to know. The new homeowners came to check on my progress. I showed them what I'd found. The husband, Eric, thought it was fascinating. Local history, he said. We should preserve it, maybe frame some of it. But his wife, Linda, looked disturbed. What happened to Thomas Hendricks? She asked. I researched it that night. Thomas Hendricks had murdered his wife in 1928, claiming she'd been replaced by an imposter. He told police that the whispers in the walls had revealed the truth to him, that his real wife was gone and something else was wearing her skin. He'd killed the thing pretending to be Mary, and then sealed her body in the walls before hanging himself in the barn. Mary's body had been found exactly where Thomas said it would be, sealed behind the plaster in the master bedroom. The police report noted that Thomas had written his entire journal on the interior of the walls, in the dark space between the studs, like he'd been leaving a warning for whoever came next. I told Eric and Linda what I'd found. I suggested they might want to sell the house, find another project. But Eric was stubborn. It's just history, he said. Just a sad story about mental illness. It doesn't mean anything. We continued the renovation, but strange things started happening. The work crew complained about hearing whispers when they were alone in rooms. 2 workers quit, saying they'd heard voices telling them to hurt their families. Another swore he saw Mary Hendricks standing in the master bedroom, pointing at the walls, mouthing the word, "Listen." I started hearing them too. The whispers. They came from inside the walls. So faint you could almost convince yourself it was just pipes or wind or the house settling. But they formed words. They knew things. They whispered my daughter's name, told me about the affair my wife had last year that I'd never discovered, revealed the secret about my father's death that my mother had kept from us kids. True things. Impossible things for anyone to know, and they kept saying the same thing over and over. We know what everyone really is. We can see through the skin. We can see the truth. Let us show you. Linda called me in a panic one night. She said Eric had been acting strange. He'd been pressing his ear against the walls, listening for hours. He'd stopped sleeping. He kept telling her that the walls had shown him something about her, something terrible, and he needed to fix it before it was too late. I drove over immediately. Found Eric standing in the master bedroom with a sledgehammer, systematically destroying the walls he'd paid me to renovate. He was muttering to himself, reading the writing that was being revealed as the drywall came down. "She's not Linda," he said when he saw me. "The whispers told me. They showed me the truth. My real wife died 3 months ago in a car accident, but something pulled her body out of the wreckage before the paramedics arrived. Something is wearing her now. I have to stop it before it happens to anyone else." Linda was crying, trying to tell him she was real, she was herself. But Eric just kept swinging the sledgehammer, revealing more and more of Thomas Hendricks's writing on the walls. I called the police. They came and took Eric away. Linda stayed with family. The house sat empty for 2 months while Eric underwent psychiatric evaluation. He kept insisting the whispers had shown him the truth, that something was wrong with Linda. Then the autopsy report came back. Eric had been right about one thing. Linda had died. 3 months before I'd met them, Linda had been in a fatal car accident. She'd been declared dead at the scene, but somehow she'd walked away. The hospital had no explanation for how she'd survived injuries that should have killed her instantly. When the police went to question Linda, they found her family dead. All of them. Sitting around the dinner table like they'd simply stopped existing mid-meal. No marks on them, no explanation. And Linda was gone. I went back to the house one last time to collect my tools. I stood in the master bedroom, looking at the exposed walls covered in Thomas Hendricks's writing. And that's when I finally understood what the whispers were. They weren't coming from ghosts or demons. They were coming from the house itself. The structure had somehow become aware, able to perceive things humans normally couldn't. Thomas Hendricks had discovered this in 1927. He'd listened to the whispers long enough that they'd shown him what his wife really was. And he tried to warn future owners by writing it all down in the walls. As I stood there, I heard them clearly for the first time. We see them, the ones that aren't quite right. The ones that look human but aren't. They're everywhere now, more than there used to be, and they're getting better at pretending. I left that house and never went back. The renovation was never finished. The house still sits there, the walls exposed, Thomas Hendrick's warning visible to anyone brave enough to read it. But here's what keeps me up at night. Last week I was working on a new project across town. Different house, different family. And when I opened up the walls to check the insulation, I found it again. The same handwriting, the same manic scrawl, but these walls had been sealed since 1952. The message was different though. More urgent, they're in your home now. Check your family. Check them carefully. The whispers can show you the truth, but only if you listen. Only if you're brave enough to see what's really there. I've started listening to the walls in my own house now. And last night the whispers told me something about my wife. Something I don't want to believe. But the whispers have never been wrong before. Tonight I'm going to check. I'm going to look at my wife very carefully. And if the whispers are right about her, if she's one of them, I know where I can get a sledgehammer. Story 6. The staircase that goes down. I'm an urban explorer. I know it's dangerous, probably illegal, but there's something addictive about finding places that have been forgotten, sealed off, left to decay. Last month, I found the entrance to an old subway station that's been closed since 1974. It was hidden behind a false wall in a condemned building downtown. Most of the old station was what you'd expect. Dusty platforms, graffiti, evidence that homeless people had used it as shelter. But at the far end of the platform, I found a staircase going down. Not up to street level, but down, deeper into the earth. The stairs weren't on any map of the subway system I could find. They were older than the station itself, the stone steps worn smooth by countless feet. A chain had been stretched across the entrance with a sign that said, "Danger, do not enter," in English and 3 other languages I didn't recognize. Of course I went down. That's the whole point of urban exploring, right? To go where you're not supposed to go. The stairs spiraled down for much longer than they should have. I counted 500 steps before I stopped counting. The air grew colder and staler the further I descended. My flashlight beam seemed weaker, like the darkness here was heavier than normal darkness. Finally, the stairs ended at a corridor. The walls were rough stone, older than anything I'd seen in the subway. There were markings carved into the stone, symbols that looked ancient. Every 10 feet there was a number carved into the wall, counting down. 10, 9, 8, 7. I followed the corridor. documenting everything with my camera. At marker 5, I found the first door. It was made of thick iron, riveted like something from a medieval dungeon. A small window was set at eye level, covered with bars. I peered through. The room beyond was a cell. In the center sat a man on a metal chair. He was facing away from me, completely still. He wore clothes that looked like they were from the 1800s, but they weren't decayed or dusty. They looked fresh. "Hello?" I called out. The man didn't move, didn't respond. I watched him for a full minute. He didn't breathe, didn't shift. Just sat there frozen like a statue. I moved on, unnerved but curious. At marker 4, another iron door, another cell, another person, this time a woman in a Victorian dress standing in the corner facing the wall. Just as still as the first person, each cell I passed had someone in it. Men, women, even children, all frozen in different positions, all wearing clothes from different time periods. None of them moving, breathing, or responding to my calls. When I reached marker 1, the corridor ended at a massive stone door. It was carved with the same strange symbols as the walls, but these seemed to pulse with a faint light. The door was sealed with 7 iron bars, each one padlocked. On the wall next to the door was a plaque. The metal was tarnished, but I could read the inscription. "The sleepers must remain contained. 7 seals for 7 watchers. If all 7 seals are broken, they wake. If they wake, they rise. If they rise, they open. Do not attempt entry. By order of the Sovereign Order of Eternal Vigilance, 1823. I took photos of everything and started back up. But as I passed cell 4, I stopped. The woman who'd been facing the wall was now facing the door. Facing me. Her eyes were open, staring directly at me. But she still wasn't moving, wasn't breathing. Just staring, I ran. As I passed each cell, I saw that all of them had turned to face me. Frozen people in different poses, but all with their heads turned, all with their eyes locked on me as I passed. Like mannequins that had rotated when I wasn't looking, I made it back to the stairs and climbed. But I could hear something behind me now. Footsteps. Slow, shuffling footsteps like many people walking in unison. I didn't look back. I just climbed as fast as I could. When I finally emerged into the old subway station, I collapsed, gasping. I looked back down the staircase. The footsteps had stopped. Nothing was following me, but I could hear something faint, echoing up from deep below. Singing. Dozens of voices singing the same tune over and over, words in a language I didn't know. I sealed up my access point and left, but I couldn't let it go. I spent weeks researching the Sovereign Order of Eternal Vigilance. I found almost nothing, just one reference in an obscure book about Victorian secret societies. The order existed from 1806 to 1847, then vanished from all records. Their purpose was maintaining the seals on the deep places and ensuring the sleepers remain undisturbed until the end of days. The book mentioned 7 underground sites around the world where things that should not wake were being held. Yesterday, I saw a news article. A construction crew working on a new subway line had accidentally broken through into an old corridor beneath the city. The article mentioned that they'd found 7 iron doors, all standing open. The cells behind them were empty, and at the end of the corridor was a massive stone door. Its 7 iron bars cut through, the locks broken. Last night I heard the singing again. But not from underground, from outside my apartment. I looked out my window and saw them. Dozens of people standing on the street below, all facing my building. They were wearing clothes from different eras, standing perfectly still, staring up at my window, and they were all singing that same song in that unknown language. This morning, they were gone, but as I walked to work, I started noticing them. People standing too still on street corners, commuters on the subway who never blink, A child in the park who hasn't shifted position in 20 minutes. The sleepers are awake. They're up here now, mixed in with the rest of us, and I don't think they're human. I think they're old. I think they've been down there for a very long time, sealed away by people who knew what they were, and now they're free. I'm writing this from my apartment. I've barricaded the door, but it won't matter. They're not trying to get in through the door. I can hear them in the walls now. That same singing getting louder, coming from every direction. The worst part? I'm starting to understand the words. The language isn't unknown. It's old. Older than any language that should exist. And the song isn't a song. It's instructions, a ritual, a summoning. I looked up the other 6 sites mentioned in that Victorian book. Over the past month, there have been reports from each location. A collapsed tunnel in Paris, a sinkhole in Moscow, an earthquake that opened a crevasse in Tokyo, all of them revealing underground chambers. All of them empty now. The 7 seals weren't just for one place. They were for 7 different prisons scattered across the world. And they've all been opened. My neighbor knocked on my door an hour ago. I looked through the peephole and saw Mrs. Chen from 4B, but she was standing too still, and when she spoke asking if I was okay, her mouth didn't quite match the words. Like a dubbed movie, but the delay was just slightly off. I didn't answer. She stood there for 15 minutes, not moving, staring at my door. Then she walked away with that same shuffling gait I'd heard in the underground corridor. I've been checking the news obsessively. There are reports coming in from around the world. People acting strangely. Mass gatherings where hundreds of people stand motionless for hours. Videos of crowds moving in perfect synchronization like a hive mind. The sleepers are spreading. Or maybe they're not spreading. Maybe they're waking up others. Maybe that's what happens when you see them. When you hear their song for too long, maybe you become one of them. My hands are shaking as I write this, not from fear. That's what terrifies me most. The shaking isn't from fear. It's from something else. An urge to stop moving, to stand still, to listen to the song that's getting louder in my head. I keep catching myself frozen, staring at the wall for minutes at a time without realizing it. When I snap out of it, I've moved position without remembering. This morning I woke up standing in my kitchen, facing the corner, with no memory of getting out of bed. The song is beautiful when you really listen to it. It promises peace, stillness, an end to the chaos of thought and movement and change. Join the sleepers. Be still, be perfect. Be eternal. No, I have to fight it. I have to warn people. I have to. Why am I writing this? Who am I warning? If you're reading this, you've already heard the song, haven't you? It's in the words. It's in the pattern. I've written it down and now it's in your head too. Can you feel it? The urge to be still, to stop the constant noise of your thoughts. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to spread it. But maybe that's what I was always meant to do. Maybe that's why I was drawn to those stairs. Maybe the sleepers called to me specifically, knowing I'd be curious enough to go down, knowing I'd tell others. The singing is so loud now, so clear, and I finally understand what they are. They're not creatures or demons or aliens. They're what comes next, the next stage. After humanity has had its brief chaotic moment, the sleepers represent what the world becomes. Still, quiet, perfect, eternal. And they've been waiting so patiently for their time to return. I can see them gathering outside now, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all standing perfectly still, all staring up at my window, waiting for me to join them. And I want to. God help me, I want to so badly. The door is unlocking itself. I didn't touch it. The locks are just turning on their own, one by one. They're coming in now, filing into my apartment in a silent procession. They're surrounding me. One of them is reaching out a hand. I recognize him. It's the man from Cell 5, the one in the 1800s clothing. He's smiling. His hand is cold when I take it, so cold. But the coldness feels good. It feels like relief. The singing is inside me now. I'm singing with them. We're all singing together. One voice. One purpose. I'm going to post this now. Send it out into the world. Let the song spread. Let others hear it. Let them understand. Let them. This account has been deleted by the user. Story 7. The support group. I found the support group online when I was searching for help with my insomnia. The listing said it was for people who see things they shouldn't. I assumed it meant hallucinations, maybe a side effect of sleep deprivation. The meetings were every Thursday at 8 p.m. in the basement of an old church downtown. When I arrived for my first meeting, 6 people were already sitting in a circle. They looked normal enough. A middle-aged woman, 2 college-age kids, an elderly man, and 2 others about my age. One chair was empty and the moderator, a woman named Carol, gestured for me to sit. "Welcome," Carol said. "Before we begin, I need you to understand the rules. First, everything shared in this room stays in this room. Second, we don't use last names. Third, and most important, never tell them that you can see them. Once they know you can see them, everything changes." "Them?" I asked. The others looked at me with a mixture of pity and understanding. "You'll understand soon," Carol said. "Why don't we start with Marie? Tell us about your week." Marie was the middle-aged woman. She twisted her hands in her lap. "I saw 3 this week. One at the grocery store standing in the produce section. It was just standing there, staring at the apples, not moving. For the entire 20 minutes I was there, it never moved." The others nodded like this made perfect sense. "Did it notice you watching?" Carol asked. "No, I was careful. I pretended I couldn't see it." "Good. That's good. Trevor, your turn." Trevor was one of the college kids. I saw one in my dorm. It was standing in the hallway outside my room every night this week. Same position, same time, 3:33 a.m. I'd hear my roommate get up to use the bathroom, walk right past it, not even notice. But I could see it so clearly, tall, too tall, with its head bent at that angle because the ceiling's too low. My heart was pounding. "What are you all talking about? What are you seeing?" Carol turned to me. "That's why you're here, isn't it? You've seen them too. You just don't want to admit it yet. Think carefully. In the past few months, have you noticed people who don't quite fit? Who stand too still? Who appear in the same places over and over? Who others walk past without seeming to notice?" I thought back. There was a man on my subway platform every morning. Same spot, same position. I'd assumed he was just a regular commuter. But now that I thought about it, I'd never seen him get on a train. He was always just there, and other commuters would walk through the space right next to him, crowding together even though there was plenty of room where he stood. "The man on the subway platform," I whispered. Carol nodded sadly. "You're one of us now. You're a seer. Most people can't perceive them. They walk past them every day without knowing. But some of us, for reasons we don't understand, we can see them. And once you start seeing them, you see more and more." "What are they?" I asked. "We don't know. We call them the Watchers. They don't move much. They just stand in places and observe. They've probably always been here, but seers are rare. This group has been meeting for 12 years. We're the only 9 seers we know of in the entire city." 9. "There are only 7 of you here." Carol's face went pale. "There are 8 of us here. Plus you makes 9, I counted again. Carol, Marie, Trevor, the elderly man, the other college kid, and 2 others, 7. There are only 7 people in this circle," I said. Carol stood up slowly. "Everyone count off by number. Start with Marie." 1, Marie said. 2, Trevor said. 3, said the elderly man. 4, said the other college kid. 5, said a woman I'd assumed was one of the members. 6, said another man. 7, Carol finished. We all stared at each other. One of the people I'd been counting wasn't part of the group. One of them was a watcher. "Nobody move," Carol said quietly. "Slowly, one at a time, tell me who you're looking at. Marie, starting to your left, describe each person." Marie went around the circle, describing each person. When she got to the woman who'd said 5, Marie paused. "I don't." "Carol, there's no one sitting there. It goes from Trevor to James," Trevor agreed. "There's an empty chair between me and James." But I could see her so clearly. A woman in her 30s wearing a gray sweater. She was looking at me, not at Carol or the others. "At me, I can see someone," I said. "Right there, between Trevor and James." "So can I," said the elderly man whose name I learned was Robert. The woman in the gray sweater smiled. Her mouth opened too wide, stretched too far, and she spoke, her voice like dry leaves. "Finally. We've been waiting for this." Carol grabbed my arm. "Everyone who can't see it, leave now. Get out. This meeting is over." Marie, Trevor, and the others scrambled for the door, but Robert and I were frozen, staring at the woman who wasn't a woman. "You invited it in," the thing said to Carol. "By bringing a new seer, by expanding your circle. You made room for one of us. And now we know. We know about your little group. We know you can see us." Carol's hand was shaking on my arm. 12 years, she whispered. 12 years we've been careful. We've never let them know we could see them." The watcher stood. It was too tall, just like Trevor had described. Its joints bent in wrong directions as it unfolded itself. "You think we didn't know? We've always known about the seers. We've been watching you watch us, waiting to see what you'd do with your knowledge. And you've been good little seers, keeping quiet, hiding, pretending." Robert tried to run. The watcher moved faster than anything should move. It was across the room in an instant, its hand on Robert's shoulder. Robert screamed, but the sound cut off abruptly. He went rigid, his eyes wide and unblinking. "What did you do to him?" I shouted. "I'm showing him what happens when seers forget their place, when they gather together, when they try to understand. Some knowledge is forbidden. Some things should not be seen. And those who see too much become what they see." Robert turned toward us. His movements were jerky, mechanical. When he spoke, his mouth didn't sync with the words. "It's not so bad. Being one of them. You don't hurt anymore. You don't feel anything. You just watch forever." Carol dragged me toward the door. "Run, don't come back here. Don't try to find us." I ran. I heard Carol scream behind me, but I didn't stop. I burst out of the church basement into the night and kept running until I was home. That was 3 weeks ago. I tried to find the other members of the group, but they've all vanished. Marie's apartment is empty. Trevor's dorm has no record of him. Carol's phone number is disconnected. It's like they never existed, but I still see the watchers. More of them now, many more, and they're not just standing still anymore. They're moving, slowly, deliberately. They're changing position, getting closer. There's one outside my apartment window right now. I'm on the 6th floor, but it's tall enough that its face is level with my window. It's been standing there for 3 days, staring at me, not moving, just watching. I tried to tell my roommate, pointed right at it. He looked where I was pointing and said there was nothing there. "You're working too hard," he said. "You need sleep, but I can't sleep, because when I close my eyes, I can still feel it watching me." Last night, I woke up to find my roommate standing at the foot of my bed. He was perfectly still, staring at me with unblinking eyes. When I called his name, he didn't respond for a full minute. Then he blinked, smiled, and said, "Sorry, I was sleepwalking." But his smile was too wide, and his joints bent at slightly wrong angles when he walked. "Oh wait, I don't think that was mine." "Roommate, I've been researching seers. I found one reference in an old book from 1847. It said that seers are born with a gift and a curse. The gift is perception. The curse is that perception changes reality. By seeing the watchers, we make ourselves visible to them, and once they know we can see them, they start to see us as something else, not prey, not threats, but possibilities. The book said that every seer eventually becomes a watcher, that it's inevitable. That the more you see, the more you understand, the less human you become. Until one day you're standing on a street corner perfectly still, watching other humans pass by, waiting for the next seer to notice you. I felt it happen yesterday. I was waiting for the bus and I realized I'd been standing in the exact same position for 20 minutes. Not shifting weight, not moving at all. A woman walked past me so close she should have bumped into me, but she curved around my space without seeming to notice I was there. It's starting. I'm becoming one of them. My movements are getting stiffer. Sometimes I lose time, coming back to awareness to find I've been staring at a wall for hours. The urge to be still is overwhelming, and I'm starting to understand why they watch. They're not evil. They're not malicious. They're just patient, waiting for all of humanity to become like them, because that's what happens eventually. Evolution doesn't always mean progress. Sometimes it means becoming still, becoming perfect observers of a world that no longer needs participants. I'm writing this as a warning. If you can see people that others don't notice, people who stand too still for too long, people who appear in the same places day after day without seeming to actually be alive, don't try to understand them. Don't form support groups. Don't gather with other seers, and most importantly, never, ever let them know you can see them. It's too late for me. I'm one of them now. In a few days, I'll take my position. There's a corner near the subway station that calls to me. I'll stand there. I'll watch. I'll wait with the others. Maybe you'll walk past me tomorrow. You'll feel a cold spot in the air. You'll unconsciously move around an empty space. But you won't see me. Not unless you're a seer. And if you are a seer, if you can see me standing there, please, for your own sake, pretend you can't.